I apologize, friends. There you are. Welcome, sir. Thanks for speaking with us.
Great to be with you, Robert. It's a beautiful day in Albany.
Amen. Here's the thing. It's going to be a big day for you. Shortly, you're going to have lunch with the governor, and he's going to talk about his budget. Is that right?
Yes, we've been summoned to the mansion to talk with the governor about what his plans are for the next fiscal year. As my friend Senator Tedesco said, maybe we should have a taste tester come with us. But it'll be interesting. We'll get a preview. The budget is due out tomorrow, so we'll see what he has in mind. Although I think we have a pretty good idea already after his trips across New York State.
There's a lot of spend he's talking about.
You know, I read an article this morning that said that there was an extra $15.5 billion in spending in this budget. State of New York is, by the state controller's accounting, running a $3.5 billion deficit. So the question always is, how do we pay for any of this stuff that the governor would like to get accomplished? And that'll be a big part of it. So, you know, we'll see what he has to say today, and what he is. You know, we have to prioritize, like any budget, right? Your family budget, you prioritize what's necessary. We have needs and we have wants. So I always tell my grandkids, and you know, we have to take care of our needs first. And so we will do that. We will take a look at what he is proposing, what is absolutely essential, and what isn't. We'll take it from there. But when you're running a deficit of $3.5 billion, something has to give somewhere.
Speaking with Senator Rich Funke, what are the relations between the legislators up there and the governor these days? How's that going?
Well, we'll find out today. We'll have a better handle on that, I think, today as to what kind of questions are asked and what the response is from the governor to that. Obviously, it hasn't been particularly rosy in the last few weeks, in the last month. But we'll see how it goes from here. Look at, you know, there are three branches of this government, our legislature, our assembly, our Senate, the executive. We have to come together at some point. There has to be compromise on this budget. Everybody has to play nice in the sandbox and get things accomplished for the taxpayers of the state of New York. And whatever holdover grudges may be there, it's time to set them aside and roll up our sleeves and get to work.
You speak with Senator Rich Funke. You, of course, remember better than I, sir. Back before Cuomo, whatever the governor came up with in the State of the Union address was very interesting, but it didn't very often translate into what actually happened when the Assembly and the Senate put together legislation. Cuomo came in. He had a little bit of tighter grip on people. Up until now, do you think we revert to, I mean, he has laid out this vast agenda. Do you think that the Senate and the Assembly will go, yes, sir, 3 bags full? Or could there be some, no, we're not going to do that for you this year that goes on?
Oh, I think there's going to be a lot of no, we cannot do that, you know, this year. You know, there's some things that I would like to see happen. You may have read about it in the paper this weekend, but you know, we've been saddled with these big ugly bills through the years. For example, everything crammed into one package that have one thing having absolutely nothing to do with the other thing. You know, and I don't like that. I've never liked tying one thing to another thing. If it's a fiscal matter in the budget, if it has some fiscal attachment to it, I think that's fine. But I think we need to do a one thing at a time bill, for one thing. The budget extenders, and I think you're alluding to that, you know, the governor can attach his entire budget to a short-term extender. If the Assembly and the State Senate say, no, we don't like your budget, we don't agree with what's in it, right now the governor can put his entire budget, attach his entire budget to a short-term extender. That gives him incredible leverage. That's something that I think we got to change, and I want to work to change that. Because, you know, we're talking about protecting, you know, people's rights, the rights of taxpayers. I'm not talking about protecting the rights of the senators or the Assembly. This is about the people that we represent. And I think that's wrong. That's been allowed to happen. And I think we ought to change that. The other part of that, Bob, frankly, is putting policy issues in the budget. Teacher evaluations, for one thing. You know, my first year down here was one of those policy things that wound up in the budget. If it has a fiscal implication education, okay, fine. If it does not, then let's deal with it separately. And those are some of the things that I would really much like to see happen.
And the reference in the beginning of the senator's response was to an op-ed piece he had in the paper, speaking about redistributing the power of creating the budget, putting it back the way it was originally intended to be. Just a couple of these issues real quick. Do you think that this free college thing will come to reality?
I don't. What I would prefer to see, I don't think there's a lot of appetite for that right now. I think some people like the notion of trying to get, college tuition costs under control. But for me, frankly, Bob, we've tried to raise TAP. There's an $80,000 threshold per family on TAP grants right now. We could raise that to $125,000. If the governor has $163 million to create free tuition or to fill in the gaps for tuition, let's increase TAP instead, and let's make that available to all colleges, and no matter where you go, make tuition assistance available to everybody if that's going to be the deal. But the free tuition thing, I want to find out more about it. There's no money in the budget to pay for it. So we'll hear more about that today, but it's not something that I support.
He also spoke about a compulsory vote, if you will, this fall on consolidation. Each county leader would have to create some sort of plan and take it directly to the voters. Any thoughts on that, sir?
I think, the 2% tax cap has really, it's been good for taxpayers. We have saved a lot of money in the state of New York since that has been instituted. But obviously, small communities, I think of Naples, I think of Bloomfield, areas that I represent in Ontario County, where they share services each and every day with neighboring towns and villages and so on. They are strapped. They've done everything they can to reduce the tax burden on their residents. I don't know what more the governor expects them to do. It's one of those deals where, sure, does it sound like something that's going to be good for taxpayers? Maybe in the longer run it will be, but I think you have to be realistic about where you're headed.
He's also a little bit lower profile. He wants to obstruct the use of fracked gas in New York, natural gas produced elsewhere in the country via fracking. He wants to somehow prevent that from being used in New York. Seems like it would drive up energy prices. Any thoughts on that, sir?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're closing Indian Point, which provides something like 2,000 megawatts of energy and 25% of the power in New York City. I mean, it's clean, emission-free energy. And so now we want to not use fracked gas. 3/4 of all the gas that's used in New York City or New York State is fracked gas. 2 new gas-fired plants are coming online in the Hudson Valley in the next few months. So I don't know how you're supposed to replace that. We're not going to replace that with solar. We're not going to replace that with wind power overnight. It's just common sense. Think about, would it be nice to be able to do that? Sure, but that's a long, long, long way out, and it's an incredible cost factor as well. So let's be realistic about what we do here, and let's understand that nuclear power is clean, emission-free power.
100%. Speaking with Senator Rich Funke, $500 million more for Buffalo. He proposes.
$500 million more for Buffalo. Yes. I did read an article where there's about $1 billion left over in settlement funds, and I think everybody would be scrambling for that extra $1 billion that might be left over in settlement funds. That's sort of free dough for the state of New York. Let's spend it wisely. $500 million more in Buffalo. He's got a parks proposal, a trails proposal out there for a couple of $100 million. Again, all of these things, needs and wants. As parks chair of tourism and parks, wonderful thing. But I think, let's fix the parks that we have first. And there are a lot of parks that I've visited that could use some sprucing up in terms of the trails that they have and the cabins that they have and things of that nature. So let's work on tourism matching grants. But before we create a trail, which would be a wonderful thing, I think we have to fix what we have.
Yeah, 100%. Very. I'm trying to think. Anything else big that's going into today we ought to know about, sir?
Well, I think there's some positives here too, and the positives I think in the budget, or at least what has been proposed, is child care tax credits. I think that's a good thing. I would like there to be even more dollars made available there. Uber upstate, you can access Uber in Dubai, but we can't get it in upstate, and that's a little crazy. So we need to do that. We need way less state regulation on that, and provide more local control if it's up to me. But we need to get Uber going, and the water infrastructure. The proposals that are out there to bond for water infrastructure, that's all infrastructure needs are great in the state of New York, Bob. I think everybody understands that. We've got an aging infrastructure in this state. It's a public health issue. We need to get our arms around it and figure out how we can address it. So those are three things in the budget that I think are, worthy of consideration.
Outstanding. Senator Rich Funky, thanks for your service and thanks for talking to us, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir, Bob. Have a great day.
My friend. Have a